Hi everyone, welcome to Vantage Live Analysis session, right? So I'll just wait for about 1 to 2 more minutes for more people to stream in. For those of you guys who are joining us here, right, a very big welcome. Okay, so very nice to meet all of you, right? I'm Lee Singh and I'll be doing the live analysis session for today. So if you guys have any questions as well, right, feel free to put them under the questions chat. Okay, so I'll have the questions chat up as well so that I can see any of the questions that you guys have. For today, I'll be covering mainly on euro dollar and pound dollar, right? So if you have any requests for any specific charts, do put them under the questions tab and we will take a look at them together. Okay, so let's give it about 1 to 2 more minutes for more people to join us and we will begin the session, right? So for those of you guys who just joined, right, a very warm welcome. Okay, let's get started. Right, so for today, we will be covering the live analysis session. So for those of you guys who just joined us, a very big welcome, right? And also, if you guys have any questions, if there are any specific chart requests that you want us to take a look at, right, do put them under the questions chat. So for today, I'll be covering mainly on euro dollar and pound dollar, as well as the dollar index. So let's take a look at them. Okay, just a quick introduction of myself before we begin the session, right? So I'm Lee Singh. I'm also part of the team that is recognized by as finalist for the best FX research for 4 consecutive years, right? And you can find me on LinkedIn as well. So for those of you guys who are watching the recording, you can, if you have any questions with regards to the analysis done on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, right? You can feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. If not, if you guys are with us live right now, if you have any questions, do put them under the questions chat. So just a quick disclaimer before we get the session started. So trading, it's not to be, trading comes with risk, right? And do manage, and this information presented here, it's not to be treated as an investment advice. It's for educational purposes only. So this is the agenda that we will be covering for today, right? So it'll be a 30-minute session. So we'll first start off with a key economic events. So what are the key events to keep a watch out for? So mainly the CPI data, any retail sales data, or even key interest rate decisions for this week. And followed by that, we will have our trade setups and review. So for those of you guys who join us, right, so basically on Wednesdays and Fridays, we have our live analysis session. So this is where we will show trade setups. We will also be covering specific setups and what are specific ideas that we're looking at for that day, right? So for today, we will be reviewing the trades that were done last week, so last Friday. And then at the same time, we will also be showing the setups that we are currently looking at. Excuse me for that. And then along with that as well, we have our Q&A session and chat requests, right? So it doesn't have to be at the end of the session. If you guys have any questions along the way, right, just feel free to put them under the questions chat. So just before we hop on to the charts, right, let's take a look at the economic calendar for today. So I'll just bring up the economic calendar, right? And if you guys can see my screen, right, do put something under the questions chat. Okay, so let me just bring up the economic calendar. So you can see that this is the economic calendar that we have here. Okay, so this is the economic calendar. You can see that these are filtered accordingly. So I filtered according to this week's key data releases. And these are the different impacts. So generally, I look at the ones with higher impact. So the ones in orange and the ones in red. So in this case, you can see that for today itself, right, we have pounds CPI data. So this is the annual inflation. It came in at 10.1%. So this actually exceeded the market forecast, right? So with this, it can also prompt the BOE to raise rates further, right, to basically clamp down on inflation. So that's one. And then coming up, we have the CAD CPI data as well. So this will affect movement in the CAD. And then we have the dollar, right? So dollar and Aussie jobs report. So these are the key events that are coming up, right? So for tomorrow, mainly it will be on the Aussie as well as the dollar. And then on Friday, right, we actually have pound and CAD's retail sales data. So this itself would measure basically the strength of the domestic economy and how resilient shoppers are in particular, right? Or consumers rather, right? How resilient consumers are in response to this rising price pressures that we have here. So this would be basically the key data for today. In terms of the movement that we are seeing, right, you can see that we're seeing quite a bit of data releases in terms of the dollar as well as the CAD. Okay, so mainly on the dollar, CAD, and pound. So these are the events for today, right? Now let's take a look at the charts. So for the charts, right, I'll be covering this. So for the charts, I'll be doing a review on dollar index and euro dollar. So basically sharing the setups that we covered on Friday and also seeing how it turns out. And followed by that, I will be covering mainly 3 setups for today, right? So setups that I'm currently looking at, it will be on dollar index, euro dollar, and pound dollar, right? So these are the setups that we are covering for today. If you guys have any specific ones that you want us to take a look at as well, right, do put them under the chat and we'll take a look at them together. Okay, so let me just bring out the charts here, right? So let's take a look at dollar index first. Okay, so let's take a look at dollar index. So for dollar index, just give me one moment. This is slightly laggy, I would say. Okay, we have requests by Sun, right, to take a look at pound yen. Yes, let's take a look at that as well. Okay. And let me just bring out the chart on dollar index. Okay, I can't seem to load the previous chart layout, right? So it's just lagging here right now. Let me just extend this. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we just gotta give it a while. It's slightly slower today, right? So let's do a review. Okay, since we are on the euro dollar chart, then let's take a look at the euro dollar chart first. So these are actually the calls that are made on Friday. So we're taking a look at how it plays out right now. And also, I'll just do a quick recap of why we made these calls. So let's take a look at euro dollar. So basically the colored candles that we see over here, this is the projection. The blue line over here, it's back when we saw the chart on Friday, right? Because before all of this play out. So on euro dollar, our time frame, or rather our bias, is more bearish, and you can see that this is the resistance zone we highlighted. So this played out very nicely here. So in terms of how we got these levels, you can see that on the higher time frame first, on the daily time frame. So this has to do with also supply and demand zones. So you can see that in general, basically on the possibly. Yeah, I think it's a good idea, right? So maybe I'll just switch off my camera so that we're able to increase the bandwidth, right? So that hopefully it's smoother here. So let me just turn off my camera and let's see how it works. Okay, I hope that this is better. Okay, so there we go, right? We have the daily. Thanks for the suggestion anyway. Okay, so in this case, you can see that on the daily time frame, essentially what we have over here on the daily time frame is that prices are sitting on this resistance area, right? Or you can call it the supply zone. Essentially, how we took highlighted this level, it's looking at the consolidation. So if we go on to the 4 hours, you can see this clearer. There is essentially this consolidation where price moved sideways before we saw a clear break below this level, and price once again returned to this region. So on the higher time frame, we saw that price reversed off a supply region over here. And back when we saw the chart on Friday, right, we highlighted this area again, right? This has to do with the interaction between prices, right? So this region was highlighted because of how price reacted over here. You can see that price came in to test this region as a resistance, and then again as a support over here. And even if you were to look at it in terms of line chart, you can see that this region itself, if I were to draw a line chart, it separates this line very nicely across. So this is the reason why we highlighted this region that we saw on Friday, right? So back when we saw on Friday, we were somewhere here in time. So this is how the chart looks like. So you can also review the recordings. They are posted on YouTube as well, right? So these are the levels. So in terms of this resistance area, you can see that we can also find the 61.8 Fibonacci retracement. So there are two Fibonacci retracement, right? One is to find support and one is to find resistance. In this case, we're trying to find resistance. So what we want to do is to identify the last move using the high as the starting point and the low as the ending point. So this is the region, right? So Fibonacci retracement of the move from high to low and then taking the pullback here. So you can see that this region also lines up with the 61.8 Fibonacci retracement. So for those of you guys who are familiar with Fibonacci retracement, this itself is also the golden ratio, right? So this is the region. And then following which, right, we highlighted this region, we saw that because on the higher time frame, it's more bearish, given that prices are still sitting on this daily supply zone that we've highlighted. This region itself, right, when price entered this region, we're looking for shorts here. So this played out nicely. If you go on to the smaller time frame, right, so essentially when we highlight these regions on the higher time frame, what we're trying to look for on the smaller time frame is essentially waiting for a clear break of supply or demand in this case, because we're looking for shorts. So this will be waiting for a clear break of demand regions or support zones, right, and then playing the drop. So these are the 4-hour levels, right? So we explained this level over here. The next level I wanted to highlight, which is basically the region that we are playing that push to, it's actually this region here. So this is the region, right? And again, right, looking at just how price interacted with this region as a resistance. So let me just zoom in so that we can see this clearer. As a resistance, as a support, and then once again as a support over here. So you can see how price interacted with this region multiple times. And coming in over here, right, this is the region that we want to keep a lookout for as the next support area. So having highlighted this on a 4 hours time frame, you can go to either the 30 minutes time frame or even the 15 minutes time frame, and you can see this region itself, right? So what we have here, so this is the projection, right, or the view that we have, right? So let me just delete this. So you can see on the 15 minutes time frame, right? So this would link back to the market structure topic that we covered, right? So you can see that coming into this resistance area that we have over here, you can see bullish market structure. How so? In terms of how prices are forming your higher lows and higher highs coming into this region, you can see this region over here, right? We have higher lows and higher highs coming in. And what you have over here on this 15 minutes time frame, so let me just zoom into this area here. Okay, so currently what we have over here is that you can see a very clear support area. It's the same idea, right? So you can see how price interacted with this region. So this region over here, there is this push down or this hesitation before we saw that push up, and price came in and it respected this demand area until it fails. So this is the region, right? So if you can take a look at it in terms of candlesticks, you can take a look at it in terms of line chart as well. So let me just highlight this area. So this is the support region that we have over here on the 15 minutes time frame. Since this is the 15 minutes time frame, I'll just put this as a 15 minutes in a lighter color, right? So let's just use blue, for example. All right, so this is the 15 minutes time frame. You can see in terms of line chart as well, you see this hesitation over here. So price came in, hesitated, and you can see that reaction of this region, right? So price came in and respected this region as a support area or demand area before it fails, right? So this is the region that we have, and this is also the bearish confirmation here. So currently you can see that when demand fails, again, when demand fails, it creates a supply region, right? So this is the area that we are currently looking at. So when demand fails over here, what is the candle that still holds within this region before it fails completely? You can see that this is the area that we have over here. So price came in And essentially price reacted on this region and then it pushed down, right? So you can see how price played out here. There is a strong push down. It respected this zone over here. And then it pushed up and then pushed much lower. So right now, what we have over here in terms of the 30 minutes time frame is that prices are currently, it failed this support region that we have over here, right? So on this pullback, you can see that in terms of structure as well, this is the last low. So price pushed down, and then we saw this last low being formed over here, and there is a clear break in terms of the last low or a break in structure. So currently, right, in terms of the 15 minutes time frame, we're seeing more bearish move. And this is aligned with our higher time frame, the 4 hours, right? Given that prices are sitting on this resistance area here. So on this pullback, right, currently the next thing that we're looking for on this region itself, it's clear support and resistance areas. So on the 30 minutes time frame, not the 15 minutes. I'm not sure why I wrote the 15, but this should be the 30 minutes. You remove this as well because it's no longer relevant in terms of the marking, right? So we'll be taking a look at how the chart play out from here. So in this region itself, you can ask yourself again, right? So this would be the last support area. It became a resistance area because price reacted to this region. So basically, when price pulls back into this region itself, you can see that this is our resistance area. So this became a support turn resistance area. In terms of how price interacted with it, you can see that, let me just extend this, right? So there is demand, price came in, respected demand area, and then it failed. Once demand fails, it creates a supply region, right? So this is the supply area. So this is the supply area that we're waiting for price to enter. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight this as the M30, and there we go. Okay, so now that we have identified this zone, right, the next thing we want to do is to use Fibonacci retracement, right, to try and find if there are any levels that line up here. So the most important thing is to first identify the zone, right? The reason for that is because if I were to take a Fibonacci retracement, I can draw them anywhere. I can take it from here to here, right? And basically at almost every level, because Fibonacci retracement, if you use the one on TradingView, right, these are the default levels that are given. So this is the reason why, right, at almost every interval, you will be able to find a Fibonacci retracement. So which is why it's important to first identify the zones, right, understand the interaction between supply and demand first, and then use Fibonacci retracement. Okay, so I have a question. How can you use Fibonacci confluence between higher and lower time frames to gain an entry and take profit? Okay, so I'll share a little bit more using this example, right? So you can see that having identified this zone over here, what we want to do next is to use Fibonacci retracement to find resistance. When we want to use Fibonacci retracement to find resistance, we want to identify the last move. So what is the last move here? It's the push down, right? And then over here, if this is the last low that we have, this is the last low that we have before seeing the pullback, essentially, if we want to use Fibonacci retracement to find resistance, we need to identify the high, which is this move here, right? So this is the high as our starting point, and the low that we have over here as our ending point. So when I want to use Fibonacci retracement, right, to find if there are any levels that line up with this supply area that we found, I will need to use the high, which is this area, right? So I'm starting from here and ending here. So in order to use Fibonacci retracement, you can use this tool here. So you can see that I use Fibonacci retracement and Fibonacci extension a lot, right? So which is why Sun also mentioned the confluence levels here. So this is Fibonacci retracement. So just click on this. I'll turn on the magnet mode as well, right? So hover around this and pick the highest point. Hover around this and pick the lowest point. So you can see this region itself. So let me just remove this. Key ones that I usually look at would be the 61.8 and 78.6, right? But anything below the 100 itself is applicable. So these are the ones, right? So this region here. So you can see that in this area itself, we have the golden ratio here that lines up very nicely with this resistance zone that we have. So this is the first region to watch, right? One thing I do want to highlight itself is that if price forms a lower low, so if it continues downwards, then we have to adjust the Fibonacci retracement, right, using the new low that is formed here. So this is just something to keep in mind, right? If we do see a pullback here, then yes, this retracement is still valid. But the moment price forms a new low, right, you will have to adjust the Fibonacci retracement accordingly. Okay, so this is important, right? So when you're doing your analysis, right, please keep this in mind. So once we have this, we have the Fibonacci retracement level over here. The next thing that we want to identify, right? So this has to do with Fibonacci confluence, which is the question that Sun asked, right? Regarding Fibonacci confluences. So essentially what Fibonacci confluence means is just trying to find if there are any areas specific to this example itself would be if there are any retracement levels and any extension levels that line up on this resistance zone that we have identified. Okay, so this is basically what Fibonacci confluence means. So in this region, we have identified the retracement, right? The next step is to find our Fibonacci confluence. So for Fibonacci confluence, they are basically zigzag levels, right? So if we want to use Fibonacci confluence to find resistance, we are identifying zigzag patterns that look like this and zigzag patterns that look like this. Okay, so can you guys just tell me, maybe let me just draw it a little bit clearer so that we're able to see it here. And this is the other one. Okay, so this is pattern number 1 and this is pattern number 2, right? So can you guys just look at the chart that we have here? Look at this example and see if you can spot the zigzag pattern that looks similar to number 1 or number 2. Okay, so put your response under the questions tab, right? Give it a shot, right? And try and see if you can spot either pattern number 1 or number 2. Okay, we have one for number 2. Okay, so see whether you can spot the pattern, right? Okay, I'm getting a lot of number 2s over here. Higher low. Yep, you're right, right? It's a higher low. Higher low. No, this is actually the last low, right? So this is actually the push down. So you can see this region itself, right? This is the last low, and price actually broke the last low that we have over here. So anything within this leg, the pullback, right? For me, this is bearish. Okay, but in terms of the zigzag pattern, right, actually it's more similar to number 1. So I'll explain why in a moment, right, because of this, right? So you can see that this number 2, it will only form, right, if price comes into this region, retrace and push higher from here. Then this would correspond more to number 2. But currently what we are seeing over here, it will be more similar to number 1 because of this. So this is actually the zigzag pattern. Can you see this? Right, so this is the zigzag pattern, and you can see that this is basically similar to number 1, right? Currently what we have here, so essentially this is the pattern that we're looking at. So why it's important to highlight this zigzag pattern is because we need to use this as we need to use the turning points essentially, which is these 3 points that we have over here to project this Fibonacci extension. Okay, so that's what we're going to do right now. So having identified our zigzag pattern, right, we know that this is the zigzag pattern and these are the turning points. So this is point 1, the starting point, point 2, and point 3. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, so for Fibonacci extension, you want to take this tool over here, trend-based Fibonacci extension. And again, I'll turn on the magnet mode, hover around the low, the highest point, and then the lowest point here. Same thing, right? So these are the 3 Fibonacci extensions that are commonly used. So the 61.8, 100, and 78.6. So again, you can see that if I to turn on the Fibonacci extension, right, you can find extension at almost pretty close intervals. Okay, so in this case, right, it's important to identify where it is, right? So these are the regions, so you can see, right? So these are the ones that are commonly used. Usually I don't go beyond the 127.2 extension. So in this region itself, right, let me just remove all the ones that are irrelevant. So the ones that line up more would be the 1.272 extension level. So just now, right, Shun, you mentioned that this is regarding Fibonacci confluence. So you can see that this is basically how we can use Fibonacci retracement and extension to find confluence levels. And more importantly, right, is within this zone that we've identified. Okay, so this is the region. So I'm waiting for a pullback for price to enter this region. You can see this area over here. And then this would be this H4 resistance area that we have, which is this region. Right, so this is the region that we have over here. So once price crosses above this region, this is the last structure, right? So this is the high that essentially broke the low. You can see that this high took out this low. So if we see a pullback, we're expecting price to continue on the downside. When will we be wrong on this? It's when price crosses this high. So for me, right, once price crosses above this high, this is when we'll be wrong. I want to look to get out of this position. Okay, so you don't want to put it exactly at the high. You want to just buffer it slightly higher here, right, given that this is the high. So this is the region, right? And then the higher time frames profit on the 4 hours time frame, it's this zone that we've highlighted, which is this low here. So this is the region, right? And then of course you want to consider protecting the position along the way as well. So when price comes into this region, you can see that there is this consolidation over here before we see this strong push up. right? So this is the consolidation. You can also see it in terms of line chart as well. You can see this consolidation, this small area before we saw that strong push up. So this is another region to consider for me, right? In terms of the partial profit targets. Okay, so these are the regions here. So if price push back into this region over here, right, this is the area that I'm considering, right? Partial profit over here. And then once price breaks below this area, right, and further drop from here. So this is the region to consider. Okay, so this is the area that I'm waiting for. Currently, there are no setups where price currently is, but I'm waiting for a pullback into this region. So this is my view on euro dollar, right? Yes, Chong. So I have a question, right? So the key is to find crucial thing to it's first crucial thing to find the range first. Exactly. Yeah, right. So this is the most important thing is that you need to find the range, right? So look at how price interact within with each other, right? Or even look at how price respect certain levels, right? So even if you don't want to use supply and demand zones, just look at how price interacted over here. On the 1 hour, there's a very clear support area, right? If you look at it in terms of line chart, you can see this as well, a sharp rejection of this area, and then price failed completely. There is a clear break of the support region, right? And this is coupled with the fact that prices are still in a resistance area on the higher time frame. You can see on the 4 hours as well, right? Even if you look at it in terms of line chart, you can see it very clearly. This is the support area, price failed. It became a support turn resistance area here. So this is the range. And then once you identify the range, you can use your Fibonacci retracements and Fibonacci extension levels, right? Just in this example as we've covered here. Okay, so this is my view on euro dollar. Let's take a look at dollar index. Okay, so dollar index, you can see that this is the area. So on the higher time frame first, on the daily time frame, nothing much changed from where we left off last week. If you look at the structure, you can see that it's still a bullish market structure. Currently, we're forming this new low, right? So prices are trading within the range. We have highlighted a few regions on the different time frames, right? So on the 4 hours, we highlighted this support area. So this was I believe a few weeks back, right? So we highlighted the support region. We saw price pushed higher, but it didn't reach this resistance target that we were expecting. And then last week, when we covered dollar index, right, we highlighted this region again. And how we highlighted this region again, right? What's the idea behind this is looking at the interaction between prices. You saw how price interacted here as a resistance and then held as a support, again as a resistance, and then right now it's entering into this region as a support. It's also lining up with this ascending trend line. Coupled with that, right, you also have the retracement level. So if we want to use Fibonacci retracement to find support, right, it's the other way around. We are basically trying to identify the push up and using the low as the starting point and the high as the ending point. So that's what we did, and that's how we found the 61.8 retracement, the golden ratio that you have over here, right? So it's taken from using this low and then off to this high. So you have the 61.8 retracement. So you can see that price came in and respected this region very nicely here, right? So still holding above the ascending trend line, still holding above the support area. This is currently the region that we're looking at, right? So this is in terms of the 1 hour time frame. Something else to be slightly careful of over here is that currently, if you take a look at where dollar index is on this picture itself, you can see that the recent move, right, what you have over here, again, right, if you look at it in terms of structure, you can see this pullback, right? Essentially price forming your lower lows and lower highs, right? Just within this leg itself. So in terms of the area that we have over here, you can see that this is the consolidation, again, right, this region. Price consolidated, and then we saw that push down. You can look at it in terms of line chart as well. You can see this consolidation, this area over here. So this is one region to keep in mind. Right, so this is on the smaller time frame. So prices are entering this smaller region, smaller time frame over here. This is currently the area. If you take a look at the Fibonacci retracement, having identified this region, this is the move, this is the pullback. So this is the high, and this is the low. So if we want to see if there are any Fibonacci retracement that line up with this blue zone, we need to take the Fibonacci retracement from the high and end at the low. The reason why we're starting at a high and ending at a low is because we are trying to find Fibonacci retracement for resistance. Okay, so that's what we're going to do right now. So starting from the high and low. So this is the region, high, low, open up the key level. So you can see 61.8 in this case is not valid. Why? Because it's no longer, prices are not holding within this region, right? Price actually broke above this, right? So this Fibonacci retracement is not valid. Any retracement below 61.8 is also not valid because price did not respect this region. But you can see that what we have in terms of the Fibonacci retracement that lines up with the area over here is actually the 78.6. So we have this region, right? So essentially price consolidating and then pushing lower, and there is also 78.6. And then we have our Fibonacci extension as well. So there's zigzag pattern. So you can see that this is again more similar to pattern number 1. So if I were to draw it out, you can see that this was pattern number 1 that we covered earlier, and this is pattern number 2. Okay, so you can see that this is actually more similar to one zigzag pattern. Take the turning points, 1, 2, 3. These are the 3 points, right? And we project the extension level. So Fibonacci extension taking point 1, point 2, point 3. Again, right, the 3 levels, I'll open up these 3 levels. So these are all the region. You can see that lining up with it exactly, we actually have the 100% extension. So let me just put it in a different color so we are able to see it clearer. Let me put it in pink, let's say. So this is the region. Excuse me. So this is one area to keep a lookout for, right? On the higher time frame, it's still more bullish, given that prices are still sitting on the support area. You can see on the 4 hours and also the ascending trend line. So until price breaks the ascending trend line and this support region, for me, is still bullish. But on the smaller time frame, we do have to be slightly more cautious because you can see that currently prices are actually testing this resistance area where we actually saw this two Fibonacci confluence levels here too as well. Okay, so this is my view on dollar index. And then let's take a look at pound dollar. So we covered mainly here, right? So now we have completed the review. So we did the dollar index, we did the euro dollars outlook as well, right? And also the euro dollars analysis for this week. So right now we covered both of them, right? So the last one that we need to cover would be on pound dollar. And then we'll be taking a look at pound yen as well, right? So if you guys have any other chart requests, do put them under the chat as well, right? And then we'll take okay, we have a request for NASDAQ 100. So let's take a look at that, okay? So if you guys have any other chart requests, do put them under the questions tab. Let me just bring back my charts. Okay, so let's take a look at pound dollar. Okay, let me just remove all of this, right? And let's do a fresh analysis. So over here on pound dollar, you can see first on the higher time frame. So let's take a look at it on the higher time frame first. So you can see this region over here, right? Essentially on the daily time frame. So on the daily time frame, what we have here, it's bearish market structure. How do I know it's bearish market structure? You'll see prices forming your lower lows and lower highs. And coming into this region itself, you can see that there is this support turn resistance area. So there is demand, right? And demand fail, it creates supply. So you look at this candle itself. Basically, this region over here, you can see how price reacted to this demand region. Price came in, right? Price actually reacted to it before it failed. And then it came into this region to test it again as a resistance. You can take a look at it in terms of candlestick patterns. You can take a look at it in terms of line chart. You can see that there is this resistance area that basically divide price nicely across. Price came in, tested as a support over here. We saw that reaction. We saw that acknowledgement over here, right? We saw it once with this and then again. And then price failed and tested as a resistance. So on the daily time frame, it's holding below resistance area. You can see price again tap into this region. This is on the daily. If you go to the 4 hours time frame, you can see that coming into this region itself, right? Coming in over here, we have this as the last low. So on this pullback, right? If you want to wait for 4 hours confirmation, we need to wait for the break of this last low over here. This is on the 4 hours, right? So this is the 4 hours low. You can see that this is also a support area here. So just looking at how price reacted, you can see price came in, respected as a resistance, and then it broke above it, tested as a support, and then it pushed higher. This is the region, right, to keep a watch out for, especially if you're taking shorts, you want to consider this region as a partial take profit target. This is one. If you look at it in terms of line chart, same thing. You can see how this area basically segregates or splits this chart very nicely across as both a resistance and a support. Okay, so this is the region to keep a watch out for. And then if we go to the 1 hour time frame, so on the 1 hour, you can see bearish market structure here, right, in terms of lower lows and lower highs being formed, right? So this region itself, again, what's the next thing for us to do is to highlight again specific support resistance areas. In this region itself, ask yourself, where's the area that price came in to interact most with? You can see that it's this area over here. So you can see that price came in, right? It tested as a support and then it failed, tested as a resistance and pushed lower. So if price comes into this region, right, this is an area I want to keep a watch out for. So this is the area that we have over here. If you look at it in terms of line chart, you can see it again, right? Same thing. Price came in, you can see that it tested as a support and tested as a resistance. Okay, so this is the region that we have highlighted. And if you take a Fibonacci retracement, right, this is the move down. depending on where the low is, right? So if we do see a pullback from here, then this would be the starting point would be this area as the high, and this would be the low. So taking a Fibonacci retracement of this, starting from the high, which is the highest point. This is the high, and this is the low. Same thing, open up the key levels, right? You have the 61.8 retracement. In this case, the 61.8 retracement is slightly higher, right? So in this case, my region itself, right? Because this is the area. So this is, let me just turn on the magnet mode so that I can capture it nicely. So this is the support area again, right? Same thing. You can see that this is the support area that we have over here. So generally, right, when we take the support area and it fails, you want to cover this region itself. You can see that price came into this region, it wicked slightly higher. So this region itself would be the region that you want to cover fully. So this is the support area. You want to cover the wick of this high. So it's basically the same region, right? And it's lining up with the 61.8 retracement. If you take a look at it in line chart, you can see that it basically divides it very nicely across as well. Okay, so this is the region. And so I'm waiting for a pullback into this region. Once price enters into this region, same thing, right? This is on a 1 hour. You can go to the 15 minutes time frame, wait for a clear break on the 15 minutes, right? A clear break in turn or change in structure before playing the shots. So this is one, right? So this is that area to keep a watch out for here. So let me just highlight this. And then in terms of where would we be wrong on our trade, right? If price push higher above this region, right? This is an area I want to get out. Okay, so this is the region, right? So let's take a look at how price plays out when it enters here, right? So this is one region to consider. Once price breaks below this area, back to our 4 hours time frame, you can see that the next support region that we have over here, it's this area, same thing. Right, looking at how price reacted, you can see that there is this hesitation before that strong push up. You can see it here as well, right? In terms of the hesitation, there's this hesitation before that strong push up. So these are the regions to watch out for. Okay, so this would be on euro dollar. Again, I'll just put a marker here, right? See how it reacts. So this is on a 1 hour time frame, right? I do want to highlight that when price enters into this region, you want to go to the smaller time frame or the 15 minutes or so, right? Just to make sure that there is a change in structure, because coming into this region, if you see, right, coming into this region, if we do see a pullback, you'll see bullish market structure. So you want to wait for a clear change in structure, a break of the low before playing the shots. So this is on the smaller time frame. Okay, so let's take a look at this, right? So this is on pound dollar. Let's take a look at pound yen as well, and then Nasdaq. Yes, okay, I won't forget pound yen, right? And so we'll take a look at pound yen and then Nasdaq 100, right? And yep, Sion, you need to master confluences of Fibonacci. Yes, okay. So just practice it enough, right? I'm sure you'll be able to master it. Okay, so Fibonacci confluence is really just finding levels that line up with this range and trying to see it's a probability, right? So whether there's a higher probability of it in your favor, but I would say that generally supply and demand areas or support resistance areas are still more important, right? So once you find it, then you can see if there are any levels that line up with these zones that you have highlighted. So let's take a look at pound yen. So again, right, from the higher time frame first, let's take a look at the monthly time frame. So if you take a look at the monthly time frame on pound yen, you can see this consolidation over here, right? So essentially price coming up into this region. Again, support and resistance area. You see this region over here. There is this support area. Price came in and currently is testing this region. So in terms of the monthly, you can see on the weekly as well, right? Probably clearer on the weekly time frame. You can see this region, right? So look at how price interacted. I hope this is it's not too small, right? But you can see here, this region, you can see basically how price interacted. There is support area, and then price came in, respected this zone. And then even when it failed this zone, you can see that it actually came in to test it as a resistance. And then once again, it's sitting in this region. In terms of the line chart, you can see this as well, right? On the weekly, basically, there is this chart that divides this chart nicely across. This is one. If you take a look at it on the monthly, you can see this region as well. Essentially, this support and resistance area, right? So price came in, tested as a support, it held, and then just pushed much higher, and currently it's just sitting within this region. So this is on the higher time frame, right? So this is on pound yen. You can see that on the weekly. So where we are on the weekly right now, you can see this again, right? Looking at just support or support and resistance areas, this region over here, you can see how price respected the support area, right? The support area, you can see that price came in, tested this region multiple times. So if you take a look at it in line chart, you can see this one test as a support, two tests, three tests, right? All these lows over here, and then again as a resistance as well. So if you just mark out these lows, you can see that price came in, right? This was probably triggered by a news, right? This sharp move down. Okay, this sharp move down that we have over here, probably triggered by a news event, but you can see that it came in, it respected the support area again, and then pushed higher. So this is the higher time frame on pound yen, right? Let's take a look at the daily time frame. So currently what we have on the daily, you can see that prices are entering into this area. Let me bring this up, right? So currently prices are testing this region. It broke above all this resistance area over here, right? There isn't anything much, to be honest, on the daily time frame, right? Nothing much. I don't see anything here, right? Everything else that we've highlighted, it's on the higher time frame that we saw here. So nothing much on the daily time frame. Let's go to the 4 hours time frame and see the same thing, right? So you can see on the 4 hours time frame, or even on a 1 hour, you probably see this clearer. You can see bullish market structure coming into this region. So it's the same idea, right? So price pushing into this region. You can see that this is the last low, and then right now we're forming this area. You can see that this low over here, right? Price, let me just zoom into this region. You can see that this low that we have over here, this area, right? Price pushed up, tested this region, and currently it's just hovering around this area. So this is currently what we have on the 1 hour time frame. So as long as price holds within this leg over here, let me just remove all these markings. You can see that this is the last low that's being formed. And if you look at the interactions between demand and supply area, you can see this very clearly as well. So this region over here, you see this consolidation. So price came in, it pushed up, and then it hesitated, pushed much higher, and this area became a resistance turn support area. You can see this region over here, right? So this area where we saw the consolidation. So let me just put this in a different color. Let's just say maybe in gray, right? So this region here, if you take a look at it in line chart, you can see this clearly as well, right? So essentially price came in, you saw the hesitation, and then it became a resistance turn support area, and prices are currently sitting on this region. So on the higher time frame, right, if we were to play a drop, in this case, we'll need to wait for a clear break below this support region or below this demand area here. Okay, so this is the region to wait for, right? So once price breaks below this region, you can see that there is a break of this low as well, which suggests a potential change in structure. But until this low goes as well, right, for this currently where prices are, for me, there isn't any nice setup in particular, not where it is currently, right? So a clear break below this region over here will be the area that I'm waiting for. Right, so once price breaks below this region, a clear structure is being formed, then we could potentially play the shorts, right? So we will probably have to wait to see how price play out over here. So on the break of this region, right, we can revisit this area again. Currently where it is now, right, in terms of the 1 hour time frame, you can see that prices are still forming a higher lows and higher highs coming in, right? So there's no stopping it from pushing into this region to push higher, right? So even though it is sitting on a potential monthly resistance area, right, on the 1 hour, it's not showing any signs of change in structure yet. So until this happens, right, there's a clear break below structure. For me, there isn't any setup on pound yen. Okay, so this is the region, right? So this is the area. When price breaks below this region, then we can actually, we'll come back to this area again, right? And then see if there are any clear zones for us to take the shots from. So this is my view on pound yen. Right, in terms of the confluence on pound yen, right, that's a really good question. So in this case, right, you can see that where we've highlighted this region, right? So again, Fibonacci retracement of this move, this is the push up and the pullback. So this is the low and this is the high. So we want to take the low and the high, right? So Fibonacci retracement starting from the low and ending at the high. So let's take a look at it and see if there are any levels that line up with this zone that we've identified. So Fibonacci retracement of this move from low to high. And you can see this area, right? So this is the golden ratio, right? 61.8 retracement lining up here. So this is one. Another thing that we can identify, right? So this is, again, right, I want to pose a question to you guys. So in terms of the zigzag pattern, right? So right now we're using Fibonacci extension. So do you see pattern number 1, which looks like this? Let me see. Yeah, this is pattern number 1. Okay, maybe I'll draw it a bit clearer. This is pattern number 1, right? So this is 1, and this is pattern number 2. Okay, so can you just make a guess, right? Depending on what we have, look at the chart that we are currently looking at, right? Focus on this portion of the chart. Do you see pattern number 1 or do you see pattern number 2? Okay, so again, put your response under the questions tab, right? So, okay, we have number 1. Okay, so make a guess, right? Look at what we have over here and see which one do you see. Right? Do you see pattern number 1 or number 2? After this, I think you guys are all getting fabulous at Fibonacci retracement and extensions. Okay, I have number 2. Number 1, okay, so it's a very mixed response over here, right? So I'll just wait for maybe about 3 more seconds, right? If you guys want to put make a guess in terms of that, right? I would say, okay, number 1, okay, so we have a mix of them. Okay, so this is the one, right? It's actually number 2. You can see this region. Okay, so this is actually number 2. We're trying to project to where prices are, which is here, right? So this is number 2, but there is also actually number 1, and this is the one that we're looking at here. Okay, so it's actually both. We have number 1 and number 2. Okay, so this is the one, right? So I'll start with this first. So this would be number 1, and this would be 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3, right? So these are the three points that we'll be taking, right, to project the extension. So let's take a look at that. So this is 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. So same thing, right? Open out the key level. So what you notice over here is that you can see this 100% extension that we project to. Price came in and acknowledges this region once. You can see here, right? So this is the extension level. And price actually came in and respected this region on this 100%. Also this support area that we have, right? And then it pushed higher. So this is number 1. You have the 100% extension. Number 2 is actually this one, this area. So again, right? Take the turning points, 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. So let's take a look at that, right? So this is 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. Okay, so we have this region. So your Fibonacci confluence levels, you have basically your 100% extension, which is the ones that we have in pink. And then also the 61.8 retracement. So these are the Fibonacci confluence levels that we have in this region itself. Okay, so I hope that answers your question soon. Right, okay, and then we have 2 other chart requests, and we will call it a day for today, right? So we have NASDAQ 100 as well as US 100. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so again, from the higher time frame, actually, this is interesting, right? So a few weeks back, right, someone actually requested for this on NASDAQ. Let me see, yeah. Okay, it's anonymous request. Okay, so anyway, right, on this itself, right, let's take a look at this, right? So we actually did cover this a few sessions back, right? So on the higher time frame first, you can see that prices are sitting on the weekly region. So back when we covered it, so this was the area, you can see that price came in, right? So we highlighted this zone, so price came in, it's currently sitting on this demand area over here. Again, how we identified this demand, you can see this consolidation, and then price came in, tested this consolidation, and we're seeing a slight bounce over here. If you take a look at it in terms of the daily time frame, right? So on the daily time frame, what we saw back then, we were here. So we're actually looking at this here. So we're waiting for a deeper push into this region that we have, this area, which we saw right now, right? So having reviewed this, right now, this is the area. So you can see that in terms of the resistance area, this is the last support, right? And then if extended across, you can see that price came in, respected this region as a resistance, pushed lower. So as long as price holds within this region, this resistance area that we have, right? I've also highlighted this area in terms of the line chart. You can see this as well, right? Essentially, this resistance area, price came in, tested as a resistance, pushed lower. So this is still the resistance area. It's still holding, right? So until price breaks above this region, for me, the bias is still bearish. So this is one region. If you take a look at it on the daily time frame, you can see bearish structure as well. You can see this, right? Lower lows and lower highs being formed. So this is very clear bearish structure, right? Even if I were to draw it across, you can see this is the high, and then you can see subsequent lower highs being formed, and similarly as well for the lows. So in this case, right, this would be the last leg of the move. So once price breaks above this region, which is at around, let me see. So this, the highest point, it's at around this region here. This is the high. So this is at about 11,660. So once price breaks above this region, right, anywhere within this zone, this would be the pullback. This blue zone, or rather this blue area that we've highlighted, this is the next resistance target that we have. The reason why we highlighted this, right? So we highlighted this back then. So I'm just going to extend it across. The reason for that is because you can see how price interacted in terms of support and resistance areas as well. If you take a look at it in line chart, you can see same thing. Price came in, acknowledged it as a support, tested as a resistance. So this is an area we want to keep a watch out for in terms of the resistance, right? So this is the daily. I'm just going to put it as a daily R, right? So which represents daily resistance. So yep, so when price breaks above this region, I think we could see limited push up to this area here, right? But that is that is only if price breaks above this region that we have over here. So this would be what we call the upside confirmation, right? So when price breaks above this region, we could see this limited push up before it goes into the next resistance area. In terms of the daily structure, you can see that it's still bearish market structure. So until there's a clear break of this high itself, right, I think that any pullback that we see would just be on a shorter time frame or shorter term in general. Okay, so this is my view on NASDAQ 100. And then let's take a look at US 100, and this would be the last chart that we'll be covering for today. So same thing here, right? On the higher time frame first, let's take a look at the higher time frame. You can see on this region itself, there isn't anything much on the monthly, right? No key levels, no clear levels that we have. If we take a look at it on the daily time frame, you can see that again, right? Just in terms of market structure, see how prices are forming a lower low and lower highs into this region, right? You can take a look at it in terms of the candlestick pattern. Take a look at it in line chart. You can see this as well. If we trace out the general movement, you can see the lower lows and lower highs being formed. So currently where we are, right? This is the push down here. Right, and if we do see any pullback, this is the region, same thing, right? I think the setup is pretty similar to NASDAQ. You can see this region as well. This consolidation is the same thing, right? So price came in, you can see this hesitation on the weekly, tested as a support, and then right now it's sitting on this region where we're seeing this pullback. Okay, you can look at it in terms of line chart. If you split it in terms of line chart, you can see this area where basically price came in and tested this region as a resistance and a support nicely here. So this is the region that we have on the weekly time frame, and you can see this push up, right? So same thing as what we have on the daily time frame. You see that on the smaller time frame on the daily, right, it's still showing you bearish market. Oops, sorry for this. Still bearish market structure coming in, right? So we want to wait for a clear break above the high. This is the last resistance area. A clear break above this, right? So this is at around a 11638 level. So this is one, right? So same thing, what you can do, having highlighted this region, Fibonacci retracement of the move. This is the push down. This is the pullback. So I want to take the Fibonacci retracement from the high to low here. So Fib retracement of this move from high to low, you can see that when you open up the key level, so just use the default levels. These are the ones, right? So these are the common ones. So in this region, in this zone specifically, we have this region, right? This is the area. So this is the 38.2 retracement. If you extend this zone across, you can see that again, right? Same thing is respected as both a support and resistance area. It's the same concept, right? So this is the first region. Once price breaks above this region, do note that anywhere below this zone itself, right? This is still a resistance area. Same thing, you can see this region. This is the next resistance. How so? You saw how price interacted as both a support and then as a resistance. Okay, so this is the region. Let me just put this back, right? So I'll just, same blue line that we draw across. So this is the region that we have, right? So same thing, open up the same Fibonacci retracement that we did, right? Starting from this high, ending at this low. So I'll just use the same one because it's the same region that we have, right? So I'll open up the 50, the 61.8, and the 78.6. So you can see in this specific area itself, right? This would be the region. So this is the 78.6. So again, right, as always, I like to work with zones, not so much of a specific levels, but rather zones. So you can see that this region that we've highlighted, or this blue resistance area, right, also lines up with the 78.6. So for me, right, it's pretty much the same outlook. If price breaks above this region, we could see limited upside here. But for me, in terms of the market structure, if you take a look at it on the daily time frame, it's still bearish, right? So any pullback would probably be just a bigger drop down. So this is currently what I'm seeing right now on US 100. Okay, so I hope that answers all of your questions. Okay, yes, I see it with no other questions as well, right? So yeah, I hope that answers your question as well, further. Okay, so this is the session that we have for today, right? So for Thursday, so tomorrow, right, we are covering specific educational topic, and then on Friday, we'll be doing a review of basically the setups that we have over here. Okay, so I hope that you guys enjoyed today's session, right? I'm really happy to see that it's an interactive session. You guys come in, ask questions, right? So this is exactly what we want. So we'll learn together, do the retracements, do the analysis together, and you guys will be pros at Fibonacci as well. Okay, so that's all we have for today, right? Thanks everyone, and we hope to catch you guys again for tomorrow. Right, so for those of you guys who want to find a recording of the sessions as well, you can actually go to YouTube, right? All the sessions are recorded, so you can actually review them. So if you have any other questions, before I end the session, right? So a schedule can actually be found on vantagemarkets.com/webinars. You can check out the speakers there as well and the specific topics that we cover. And if you guys have any questions, right, regarding accounts or accounts top-ups, stuff like that, right, do email them at support@vantagemarkets.com. Okay, so you're very welcome, Leo, right? So thank you so much for the session, right? It's very enjoyable. So thanks everyone, right? Stay safe, trade safe, take care, right? And I'll catch you guys again soon.